Welcome back to the Lap Podcast. I'm Tristan Ryans alongside Khaki Kevin Walker. I haven't seen you in a bit. It's nice to see that you're still here. You're with us. Look at he's had a long day, but you're here. You're healthy. We're happy to see him. We are hosting your Destination Formula One podcast following an incredibly eventful Canadian Grand Prix, an exciting one for some of us, a less exciting one for some of us. We've got a lot to talk about, though. Mercedes taking the top step for the first time this season. Alex Albon absolutely going through it. Instability at Ferrari, so much more. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. It helps support the channel, costs you absolutely nothing. We just crossed the 50 subscriber mark, which, you know, small goal in the rearview mirror. Now we have our eyes set on triple digits. So if you want to be a part of the TLP army, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Again, costs you $0.00 to support the channel, helps us move on up the algorithm, puts us right in front of more F1 fans like yourself. And if you're feeling dangerous, share us.
Definitely share us with your friends. 57, Tristan.
57?
57. You, right there, sitting in your chair, eating your Cheetos. You could be 58.
Yeah, that's a good
Or 59.
That's a good choice.
Or 60.
I'm a Cheeto guy.
Let's get to 69 by the end of the month. What do you say?
Nice.
I like it. Let's do it.
All right, but let's get into this Canadian Grand Prix.
Do we have to?
We gotta.
No,
we gotta. I got the whole background.
Let's talk about
like the cab.
Talk about. I do like the background. You know how much of a brown mocha fan I am, so yeah. I'm a big fan of this. Also, let's talk about like everyone from like 5th place down. I think that's a really smart idea.
Lando Norris is at the bottom.
That's weird. You know what? Let's start by let's start with talking about that, because I was watching the race and I genuinely did have this question. So he doesn't technically DNF from the race. They just consider him plus 4 laps, but as a finished driver. Can you explain that?
So like the plus 4 lap? Yeah, because the car...
Rather than being DNF'd, because he didn't finish the race.
I mean, he technically DNF'd. He didn't score any points.
Exactly.
The car did not cross the final finish line, so it's a DNF. But as far as like the classification being plus 4 down, yeah, it's because the car was passed 4 times on track. And then the race ended under the safety car. So because it ended on under the safety car, they never resumed racing. That's probably why.
So had it not gone to safety car, it would have just been a DNF regular.
If they had resumed racing,
it doesn't really matter. He got 0 points. Yeah, it's the bottom.
But I was just wondering. Racing afterwards, it probably would have just been a DNF. I mean, he would have still finished. I think he would have finished in like 18th place because Albon didn't finish and Liam Lawson also didn't finish.
Right.
But yeah, he would have finished technically in 18th, but he still would have DNF'd, not finished.
Interesting. I just, obviously we're going to talk about the whole incident and the clash and everything that happened, but that
I
just
sure
right
so.
off the bat,
right on the bottom of the screen.
But right off the bat, that jumped out to me, and I was just like,
how does this work?
Yeah, how does this work? Why did that?
Well, that's why you tune into the Formula One podcast.
And you know what? The best part was, that's not on my notes. That's not on your notes. We didn't talk about that before race. You just knew that answer.
And if I'm wrong, feel free to let me know down in the comments. But the Papaya incident, the Papaya clash, we're going to start there. The McLarens finally collided. We had a feeling this was going to happen.
They talked about it going into the weekend.
Yeah,
they did. They talked about it going into the weekend. I
must have missed that.
Yeah, Lando. I want to say it was Lando who was asked about it on media day Thursday, and it might have been Friday, but either Thursday or Friday. And he was like, "Look, it's not a if we're going to come to blows. It's a matter of when. We both want to win. We've both been given the clearance to race." And sure enough, foreshadowing comes to fruition. He kind of
jinxed himself.
And it happened. Yeah. So they definitely did come to blows.
But coming to blows, Lando Norris dropped like a stone in the World Drivers' Championship standings. If you watched Sunday's video, it was a solo dolo Tristan time, but I got to react to it in full. I had quite a lot of opinions on things. I had some people disagreeing with me, you included, on the severity of this, but I do want to at least address my comment, which generally was, I think it's going to change things at McLaren operationally. Not too drastically, but I do think it does change some things. You hopped into the comment section, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in this video too, addressing your comments. So if you want to be involved in the next podcast, just giving you the teaser, feel free to comment on the podcast, any of our videos. You might be featured in the next episode. But you had some thoughts. You thought that I was being a little bit dramatic. One of the TLPs thought I was being a little bit dramatic, but I do think it does change some things. I think that it does. it does force McLaren to operationally have to change some things. But I'll let you start. I want to hear what your thoughts on it were first.
My thoughts.
You want to go to the emotional side first on just how devastated you were as a Lando Norris fan, or?
So I will give full disclosure that I did not have the opportunity. First off, hope to all those applied. I hope you had a great Father's Day weekend. Hope you had fun with your kids. If you are a father, hope you had a good time. Either which way. I was enjoying my Father's Day weekend, not because I'm a father, but with my father and some other family. So I did not have the opportunity to watch the race. I did go back. I watched qualifying and I watched the race this morning because I always do before we get to write down notes. It's right there. Yeah, exactly. And even though I knew the results, I knew what was going to happen based on, posting all of our shorts and watching all of the content that comes out and all the, keeping up with everything F1. I knew what was going to happen. I knew that Lando crashed into Oscar, and I knew that he was DNF'd from the race. Even with all of that in my mind, I still was sitting there in my bed and I was just like, no, I get it. I understand from Lando's perspective, you want to go all out and you want to try to overtake your opponent. I'm not even that pissed that he did it that late in the race. There's a part of me that was like, look, just take your points and go home. But
which is how McLaren felt.
Right, exactly. But if you kind of see it from Lando's perspective, and even Oscar's been in this situation where they have both taken their points and gone home. They've done that many times before. I don't have so much of an issue with him still going for it. My problem, there's a ton of different places you can overtake. That is not one of them. That is not a spot where you overtake. And you can't try that. You can't do that. Oscar even...
At least not from that angle.
No, not from that. You can't. You literally risked it because you went on the grass. I literally have it written in my notes. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I literally have it written in my notes. The Lando tried to pass Oscar mowing the grass. You can't pass on grass. I don't know. I mean,
I've seen Lewis do it.
Well, I mean, we're talking about Lewis. I mean, Lewis and then like everyone else. But I'm just saying, like, that was it was risky enough, right? It was risky enough. You were late in the race.
I think that he thought that Oscar was going to like dare him to do it, in a sense that where Oscar's car was positioned, I don't think that he expected him to jump on the inside.
He's like, oh, I'm going to hit him with this. He's not
expecting me to go up the inside, because as you go up to turn one in Canada, having that inside line really can make or break that ability to pass in the first place. I think Lando expected Oscar to like chicken. And Oscar ain't playing chicken.
No, he's never played chicken. I'm not that pissed about the attempt. I'm not that upset about trying for it. If you're Lando, you need momentum. You need to do this. You've got to beat Oscar. He had the faster car at that moment. He was blazing. He was catching Oscar like that. You can't make that move there. You got to take a better calculated risk.
I mean, I'll just think about it like this. If he would have gone to the right and just tried to overtake on the outside, maybe you don't get him on turn one. Maybe you get that sweep around in turn two because you have that outside position, which turns into an inside position.
But there's
so much more track, even a little bit off the racing line, with the DRS wide open as well. It would have made so much more sense to just go in on the right side, or to try to make that move on the right side. Instead, you got a recreation of another McLaren incident from back in the day between Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton, where they went in almost the exact same place. I think it was like 2008, if I'm not mistaken, that the two McLarens crashed in Canada almost in the exact same spot.
It's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. But I think, and here's I'll leave with these two takeaways, and then I'll let you say your piece. Oscar's 22 points ahead of Lando. Lando is still second in drivers' championship standings. 22 points is a lot when you're both driving the same damn car.
Sure.
You're both driving a rocket ship. You're both placing podiums left and right. You're both in the opportunity for race wins. Say what you want. That is the truth. 22 points is going to be a lot of ground to make up. Because when Oscar's winning and Lando's finishing P2, P3, that's just more building on that margin. Let's just say Lando goes out, he wins in Austria next weekend. Or not, I guess not this, but next weekend, next race weekend. He goes out and he wins Austria. what are the chances that Oscar's actually going to finish off the podium?
I'd say generally low.
Exactly.
I think Canada was actually the first Grand Prix that McLaren didn't finish on.
Exactly. So you're really, you've got a max potential of gaining 10 points. And as we've seen as of late, it hasn't been looking like Lando's going to be all too much of a race winner. I am very close to jumping off I don't know.
Really?
I
You're
don't know,
gonna jump off the wagon?
I'm not jumping off. I'm riding it until the end of the year, but I'm seeing signs that
I see weakness in you. I see trepidation, Kevin.
Look, I'm seeing signs that it's just you can't do that, man. You can't take that. You can't try that overtake.
I've been saying it all season, fam. Lando does not have that dog in him.
I think he does. I just think Oscar's better. I think, you know what? And date me if you will. Not literally. I'm good. But Alan Prost and Ayrton Senna, right? Who was the better driver going into that matchup, right?
Senna.
Right. But they both were doing this. Senna came through. I feel like going into that during that era, and I guess you could correct me if I'm wrong. I think you were live back then, but Alan Prost at that time was one of the favorites. There was a lot of people that thought that could have been his year, and Senna took it away because, that's just how it went. I think that's exactly what this is. I think this was supposed to be Lando's year, and Oscar's just so damn good. He took it away. I think and look, I could be wrong, but that's what came to my head.
I mean, as far as like what this means for them going forward.
And please roast me in the comments if I've had that wrong, but that's just that was what I thought of, I guess.
Look, generally, like, I think that this does change a lot of things for them going forward. I think from the team perspective, it changes a lot of things. Maybe between the two of them, like they're still kind of buddies. Your first enemy is your teammate. I mean, generally, they get along well, and it looks great.
I sent you the comments afterwards. Lando taking full ownership, which you can always respect. But even Oscar was like, "Hey man, like I'm good." Like that was like you're the one that kind of got screwed there. I'm chilling.
Well, like. So what I wanted to get at is their ability to race each other moving forward is going to be noted by the team. It's not even just a driver to driver thing, because obviously heat of the moment, like these guys are both going to make some ambitious moves. Oscar is going to play good defense if he's ahead, and so would Lando Norris at least try to.
Yeah.
Right. Relinquishing positions is going to be the name of the game for McLaren, because for them, it's about Constructors' Championship at the end of the day. Getting a Drivers' Championship out of one of these two guys, that's fantastic. Like, that's also a goal, but primarily it's getting the max amount of points dominating the weekend and both cars finishing. You hear this up and down the paddock. We just want to make sure both cars finish, ideally in the points, right?
Which McLaren is 175 points ahead of the next opponent.
Sure. I want to say that at this point last year, Red Bull were in a position that they were clearing away. They were still
we have a legit like duo.
Yes. And obviously like that circumstance.
It's not like one of these guys is going to start bleeding points.
But I'm just saying that at a similar time last year, Red Bull were still considered favorites to at least walk away with the Constructors. Sergio Perez was not, so bad after 10 races that people were like, oh man, like I think Red Bull are really going to lose this thing.
I think they give.
So what I'm getting at is it's still 14 races to go. McLaren are going to have an emphasis on, we want to get the max amount of points out of every weekend. Lando Norris putting his car up the inside, making foolish moves, which he, again, to his credit, called a stupid decision, and he owned it, which you get a lot of credit for that. Most drivers would not be as humble.
No.
Or at least as forthcoming.
Which is the most,
but what I'm getting
like
at
Lando for you.
is McLaren's emphasis at the end of the year or throughout the rest of the year is going to be finishing. These cars can grab double-digit points every single weekend. If they're going to be battling every Sunday, you don't want your drivers feeling like they're in a position where they're going to do something stupid. There's going to be a lot more radio communication. You're probably going to hear these guys going, shut up, I got it. You know what I mean? But there's always going to be that in the back of the mind.
I think
Lando and Oscar both could have not finished this race, and it would have been a huge drop in the Constructors for them. Obviously, they're well ahead, but they would have lost even more points.
Yeah.
And I'm not backpatting too much yet. We're going to get to Mercedes in a few moments, but look, Mercedes looked like real threats this weekend.
All right, we'll get to Mercedes. I just
you don't want to lose those points.
I want to say this is gonna be the last thing, and then we'll get off the McLaren topic. I think they're going to allow it one more time. I think they're going to keep going with this Papaya rules thing, because I think if you're Zach Brown and you're Andrea Stella, you knew this was going to happen. You knew that one car was going to come to blows with the other, whether it be Lando or Oscar. You knew that this was going to happen. You're lucky that it wasn't both cars DNFing, but you knew that this was going to happen. I think you bring them in, you talk to them, be like, look, things are going to stay the same. But we can't afford this to happen one more time. One more time, that's when they choose a driver number one, and that's when they stick with it.
I just don't remember there being some Papaya rules call out in Canada is all I'm getting at. I just think that the emphasis from the team at the end of the day is
they didn't let
the weekend.
They didn't let Lando through, though. He was the faster car.
But that's what I'm getting at. Is there might be a call to Oscar like
that?
Hey,
that tells me
clean.
Right?
That
tells
like,
me that
you guys can
there
race,
is Papaya
but
rules.
like just don't make contact with each other.
That tells me there is Papaya rules, because Lando was much quicker. If they actually wanted to fight for a podium, they would have. Hey,
no, what I'm saying
through.
is that McLaren did not remind their drivers of it, which is why something like that happened. But Lando made a terrible decision. If he would have just left the racing line with the DRS, he probably still makes that pass within 1 to 2 quarters.
He's so much faster than Oscar.
All right, at least in Canada, he looked really good until he didn't.
It was a really bad week. Not really bad. It was a weird, frustrating weekend for McLaren.
And look,
I do want to add that.
And I do want to emphasize, this is going to be a moment that does help characterize the rest of this season. This is going to be a moment we look back on beyond the insanity and how much fun Canada was as a whole. The defining moment of that race is Lando Norris crashing into Oscar. That's something that does carry through the rest of the season, at least for the next few weekends. It's going to remain on the topic of mind.
All right, let's get out of here.
You want to talk about Mercedes now?
Yeah.
Let's fucking all right, yeah. I'll have to bleep that in post. Anyway, huge win by George Russell.
That is all right.
Adding to an already best season yet, completing a triple crown in Canada. Pole, fastest lap, and the race win. Oh, do you like that transition? That was pretty smooth.
I mean,
Kimi Antonelli is in the process of wrapping up high school as we
crowns.
Speak. He just finished his first of 3 exams, if I'm not mistaken.
It's incredible what he can do.
Yeah,
I just finished my final exams.
We're talking about Kimi Antonelli. So he landed an impressive P3, grabbing a podium place after just 10 races. He has already checked all the boxes.
A whole second down from his teammate.
He only a second is under safety car is very different.
I know.
What I'm getting at,
just trying to be a hater,
is that he's checked all the boxes so far for me this season. And just
okay, you know what? I'll play devil's advocate here, because for our true TLP fans, they know that we actually discussed this earlier this year
about whether or not they would win.
We at first we were like, man, is Mercedes even going to land a podium? And then they started looking good. They started turning it around. It's like, well, which one of these guys is going to win first? And I think we decided on George just out of experience and all those different factors. But coming out of this weekend, and I do have to ask this because I know how much of a homer you are you more excited for George to win or for Kimi to land pole?
Like in Miami?
Or not pole, but podium.
To like land the podium?
Like coming out of this weekend, are you like, let's go, Kimi? And they're like, yes, George, good job.
I think you got me beat right there. Yes. I'm really happy that Kimi got a podium. Like, I think that obviously
we know you have a poster of him on your wall.
I don't. But feel free to send me one. P.O. Box. I'm just kidding.
Have an 18-year-old on your wall.
We're not going to read that much into that. So what I am really excited as a Mercedes fan, absolutely excited that we won a race.
Right, but you didn't answer my question. I'm not letting you stay on the fence.
And I'm getting there.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that if between the two of those things, I think I'm very happy that Kimi won or got a podium. Like a P3 podium finish at 18, and you're not even technically done with high school yet, is insane. So I'm probably more excited for that, but it's really close because overall the excitement comes from the win.
Yep.
I'd say they're kind of 50-50, which is, it feels like fence sitting, but I'm leaning more towards Kimi, not because he's my favorite driver right now. He is. I'm excited for him. I've been rooting for the kid since last year. I'm really happy that he's got his first podium under his belt. Now he's got to go get his first win.
Is he officially Grande Kimi?
Oh, he's Grande Kimi. We're there now. We're there. I mean, it's fantastic. I'm really, really, really happy with it. my biggest question walking out of this was like, is this going to be a one-off weekend? Like, is this the high point for me as a fan this entire season?
That's a good question, because all that we've heard is the speculation that Mercedes are all in on 26 and they're done with 25.
Which
is so funny, because that report comes out and then you go out and you freaking win Canada. So
yeah, I mean, as far as them being all in on 26, yeah, there's a lot of effort back in Brackley that's being put towards the 2026 effort. I don't think that's indisputable. I think that it's probably a resourced cut of like 40-60, where you have 40% of the team still working on things generally pertaining to this season, but most of the team is still working on next year. So as far as how they're going to look going into next year, I think this is a really encouraging thing, considering there are some elements of these regulations that do carry over, which is going to be a general positive for you guys, considering that you're still far and away leading this constructors. But it shows good progress. Characteristically, Canada's a good circuit for Mercedes. Historically, they've done really, really, really well here over the years. So I'm just happy. I'm hoping that this isn't the only time this year that they take the top step.
You don't want to get a taste of it and then not taste it again.
Yeah, I mean, like Ferrari fans, y'all have been in the trenches.
Well,
we're going to get to you guys.
Yeah,
but like Lewis Hamilton getting that sprint win in China has so far been the high point of that season.
Oh, damn, yeah,
They've touched the podium twice in third place with Charles in Saudi Arabia and in I'm forgetting it. He did it again like the race before Canada. He did it in Monaco too. So
yes,
all that to say, yeah, I'm hoping that this isn't the only big high point. I'm hoping that Mercedes can really keep this season interesting in the short term. Would I rather have maybe 2 years of success going into 2026, maybe even 2027, considering how strong the power unit's supposed to be? Yeah, I think I'll take 2 years of like championship level success versus like a couple of race wins in the short term. But it does make things very interesting. I will say that much.
I mean, y'all are definitely in the running for well, there's a lot of teams in the running for third in the constructors, to be fair.
You mean second?
I meant second. My apologies. But it's, between,
so it's Max Verstappen with a couple of points tossed in by Yuki Tsunoda.
The fighting Max Verstappen.
The fighting Max Verstappens. And then Ferrari.
And
Franz Herrmann.
Yeah, Franz Herrmann.
And then Ferrari, walking into Canada, found themselves in P2 in the Constructors' Championship because Kimi had 3 straight DNFs.
True.
So realistically speaking, Mercedes have still held the second best place this entire season. They had some unlucky turn between Imola, Spain, and Monaco. Or excuse me. Yeah. And then Charles got Spain, if I'm not mistaken, too. So anyway, all that to say, I'm surprised that after they spent so long not upgrading the car going into this season, they finally completed their initial upgrade package in Canada and ended up working out for them. One of the things I did highlight on Sunday that was worth conversing about is they've had so many struggles when it comes to hot temperatures that it was a lot hotter on race day in comparison to what the initial expectations were. It was really cool on Friday, pretty cool on Saturday, but then Sunday rolled around and it was a lot hotter than people were expecting.
People were struggling on those tires.
The degradation was high. Even you guys suffered pretty massively.
We had pit stops. I think Max pits, I think he first pitted like 13 laps in.
Yeah, and then Mercedes covered him off.
Yeah, had to.
In the
and then it was just everyone had to.
Yeah,
at that point.
But like the medium tire was just not
cooked.
Yeah, it wasn't working. Obviously the softs weren't going to be much better, so the hard tire was kind of the play for the longevity of the race, but it was a 2-stop day. You guys were struggling on degradation, though. Everybody up and down the order were struggling with degradation, but Mercedes, for some reason, just didn't. And the characteristics of Canada being there's not a lot of high-speed cornering, it's lower-speed cornering, and then a lot more straights, kind of just plays into the 2 strengths that the car currently have. The question for me going forward is going to be, can they replicate this success at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, not this weekend, but the following weekend? Can they bring that level of success to Silverstone? Can they bring that to like Belgium? Can they bring that down the road?
Is Mercedes going to start fighting for poles and wins now?
Yeah, and George is having an insanely dominant year for his own standard. This is his best year as far as results from any year he's had in his entire career.
And it's good. It's his first year leading the pack.
Yeah, he looks really, really good. He's probably been the best driver not
A McLaren.
not driving a McLaren at
Yeah.
this moment.
No, I think that's
just
fair.
as far
I
as
think that's
exceeding
completely fair. I
expectations.
think I think that's very fair.
Which, not taking away from Max, we all know how disgustingly good Max is. But like as far as exceeding expectations anyway.
Yeah.
So massive for George Russell's hopes this season. There's still 14 races to go. There's only a 62-point driver championship gap.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
It's not over.
There's a lot of time, consistent high-scoring point weekends, a few wins here and there can really take some chunks out of the lead. And if McLarens keep hitting each other, that could really open the
bumper
door.
Cars with the Papaya.
As far as the drivers' championship, yeah, I think George is still in play. He's sitting in P4 at the moment, but I'm not gonna put a bet on that. Kimi Antonelli,
You're not
the
a betting man
upgrades
anyway.
Well, the upgrades I'm not a betting man anyway. You're right. But as far as Kimi Antonelli is concerned, the upgrades, what they brought to his season, this would give him a major boost in his pursuit back of P6, trying to take it to, the old guard of Lewis Hamilton, who is currently holding that spot, just a little bit of ways ahead. So as far as
only 4 points ahead.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's very
no. 16 points ahead. 16 points ahead.
Yeah, but still pretty within.
Well, I mean, compared to what Kimi's doing and Lewis is doing, yeah.
Yeah, very much so within striking distance.
Let's just go ahead and get to it.
No. I had another question. Does Mercedes have a shot at the constructors?
At the constructors?
Yeah.
No.
You don't think so at all?
Because I don't think McLaren is going to let this tomfoolery.
This tomfoolery?
Like I said, I think they're going to let it happen one more time. Like, hey, we'll let y'all keep racing one more time. And then some crap happens again. They're like, all right.
It's not as much fun when we agree, but I think it's possible, but it's not likely.
I think it's like hey, slap on the wrist one more time, then you get put in timeout. I think that's what it is.
I think it depends on how many resources.
I just don't see a situation where they're going to let the constructors slip.
Well, letting it happen and being forced to have it happen are two different things.
I understand what you're saying as far as where Red Bull was this year compared to last. But to compare McLaren this year to Red Bull from last year is kind of asinine, being that we have a second driver. Legit.
I mean, that's.
I mean, Zach Brown could hop in the second seat and do better than what Red Bull had last year.
That's ambitious. Clip that. As far as the shot of constructors,
you're talking to me doing that. So
I'm just saying, I don't think Mercedes are quite there yet. If they bring the right upgrades, I think they could be within the realm of possibility over the next 14 race weekends. McLaren in Canada struggled all weekend. One weekend, though, not a trend. Same thing goes for Mercedes. One win is not a trend.
Yeah.
Even George Russell, Toto Wolff, they were kind of muting expectations as far as what the future holds. Not exactly sure. Again, playing into their strengths in Canada, not entirely sold that this is going to be transferable, easy peasy. They're going to be fighting for the win in Austria. This time a year ago, though, like I mentioned, man, Red Bull were right here in the front, and the entire complexion of the season changed after McLaren just upgraded the car. So overall, I think when it comes to the McLaren versus a Mercedes fight, it's going to all rely on Kimi Antonelli. I don't know that Kimi Antonelli is going to outpace Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri every race weekend. I don't think that he's going to be finishing ahead of them consistently. He's still just a rookie. Mm-hmm. Hell, this was his first time driving in Canada.
Yeah.
So there's still a long season to go. Overall, I'm not expecting the order to change that drastically, but as far as championship orders are concerned, I think Mercedes are still probably going to finish P2. They're very handily in P2 at the moment, in my eyes. And as far as the drivers' championship standings are concerned, I think George is probably going to be fighting Max for that potential P3 spot. But things are looking good for Mercedes. I'll put it like that. Let's talk about the boys in red. Let's talk about Ferrari.
I'm sorry to all of our. I know we have a couple of people that love to comment, and we definitely have some Ferrari TLPs, some Tifosi TLPs. I'm sorry. I know that this year was supposed to be big for you, and I know that
you and I were both expecting it to be big.
No. Don't put words in my mouth.
No,
don't put words in my mouth.
Go back to the first episode of the season.
I knew. I said Charles was going to have a good year.
Yeah.
I knew that Lewis was going to struggle. I had a feeling that Ferrari was going to continue. Do you know how many times we've had is Ferrari going to be able to bounce back? Is Ferrari going to be able to bounce back? And literally every time I've been like, no, they're not. And they haven't, and they won't. This is going to continue to be a rough year for Ferrari, for Lewis, for Charles. Hell, his race engineer won't even listen to him anymore.
Yeah.
Charles is like, I want to do plan C. He's like, copy. Hey, we're not
Plan
doing
B
plan
it
C.
is.
We're not doing plan C. So, and you know what? You mentioned Mercedes was doing good on degradation, and Charles is like, hey, we're good. Like, I don't need to switch tires. And like, box. Like, they're not listening to them anymore.
No.
They're not listening to them anymore. And we were going to do a radio messages segment. There just wasn't that much. We'll do it at the end of the month probably, but you didn't hear a peep out of Lewis.
Well, he was mourning the loss of that groundhog that he absolutely obliterated.
I didn't see that.
You didn't see that?
No, I didn't see that.
If you were to watch, if you watch that race, that final like big hairpin turn at the top of the Canada track layout, every time they went from the chicane down to the hairpin and they flipped the camera over towards the bottom of the track, you just see a obliterated marmot carcass. Just blew up. So like in the post race, they talked about this. I mean, yeah, you're laughing. I'm dead serious. And in the post race, they talked about this. He hit one pretty early in the race, and it was costing him apparently like half a second a lap. It was like stuck in the floor. Yeah,
maybe everything's gonna be okay, Ferrari. I don't know. It's not.
But even beyond hitting wild,
but
animals,
for real, like you didn't hear anything from Lewis the entire weekend.
Yeah,
he's accepted that this year is going to suck.
They did ask him about his struggles with the car, because he's noted about it pretty loudly that this just isn't quite the year, that it's big adjustment period, yada yada yada. They asked him like describe why things weren't going well, and he said something to the tune of, it's like trying to get somebody with no rhythm to dance. I'm trying to get this thing to dance, and it just doesn't want to dance the way that I need it to dance. And I kind of get it. Like, because he's, again, going infrastructurally from Mercedes to Ferrari is one massive change. And yes, I was incredibly ambitious in picking Lewis to win the championship early. It was my bold prediction, and I understand that I was wrong, and I will be wrong, and that's fine. I wanted that moment, but I wanted the hope, right? But we already knew there were going to be infrastructure challenges. We already knew things were going to look different when he went to Ferrari. One factor that I don't think he knew was going to happen before he walked into the season, seeing how strong the Ferrari was last year.
Yeah.
Ferrari decided not to innovate on their car from last year. I remember seeing reports of them 95% changing the entire car. The last time they did that was in 2022 going into 2023.
And we're not talking about the HP logo either.
Not just the HP logo. They fundamentally changed everything that was working for them to land in P2 in the constructors last year. Instead of innovating off that design, they changed the entire car. I remember seeing this report. That change doesn't seem to be working really for either driver at all.
Yeah.
And P5, P6 results for Ferrari are just not notable.
That's what it's been this year. It's been P5, P6 weekends.
Yeah. And
one
with
after
Lewis
another.
driving by himself out in no man's land, hovering between, 6th place and 7th place.
Yeah.
And Leclerc has been owning his struggles too. The Italian media, though, has been hot on Fred Vasseur's heels. They've been hot on Lewis Hamilton. They've even been going at the throat of Charles Leclerc. And my question is, are they overreacting? Is the descent towards Ferrari a bit of an overreaction given what we know? We
better get some reports that they're like 95% on 2026, because if you tell me that they're putting effort into 2025, that's scary, because Lewis is literally like, hey, we're not getting upgrades. Like, yeah, upgrade. What's an upgrade? I never heard of that before.
This car needs an upgrade.
That ain't gonna happen. So if they're putting everything into 2026, then I think that's what, as a Tifosi fan, I think that's just what you need to look forward to. I think that's what the Italian media need to be going for. 2025 is a wash. 2025 is done. I'm sorry. It's not going to pan out like you wanted it to.
Thoughts and prayers to the Tifosi watching the TLPs,
for Lewis fans in general. Yeah. I mean, this sucks. This sucks for F1.
There are two things that are true, and correct me if I'm wrong, TLPs, but feel free to let me know if I'm right in the comments too. It is better, when Ferrari are competitive and they are fighting in the championship. It just is more compelling as a sport. And B, when Lewis Hamilton is driving, it is also compelling for him to be in the fight.
This sucks for F1. F1 doesn't want this at all. They want Lewis to be contending. They want Lewis to be in a situation where he is fighting for podiums and race wins. And
the expectations have not been met. Now, do I think that there needs to be another entire regime change and the signing of Lewis Hamilton was a mistake and Charles Leclerc is overrated? I disagree with all of this.
I disagree. And I know that we've had also some comments saying like, well, this is what you get for signing an older driver. Look, that doesn't really have anything to do with anything. This is still a GOAT. This is still a 7-time world champ. Like
he won races last year. Like, it's not like he's completely coming in off of like a dry spell that hasn't it just hasn't worked.
It's not like he's Checo Perez crashing into walls 24/7. He knows how to operate a car. He knows
who technically has a win this year.
Yes, we can play the technical card. I'm just saying, look, I think it's as simple as this. This year's not the year for Ferrari.
Yeah.
Wipe your hands clean. Move on to 2026. Take your 5s and 6s every weekend and move on.
Look, and the expectations, I think Lewis gets it at this point. I think Charles understands it at this point. You try to get the best result you can. Sometimes things are going to go towards you. Sometimes they're going to go away from you.
Yeah.
That's kind of the nature of being not quite in the front. 2026, I think, is going to be the biggest judge of this regime, of this project, and its direction.
That's when people are going to start getting canned or getting demoted, is if 2026 doesn't work out.
Very possibly. Yeah. Because we have to remember this too. Fred Vasseur, their team principal, came in mid-regulation. There are a lot of things infrastructurally that Mattia Binotto left behind. This is the second or third year of Fred Vasseur being the top man of this project. That being said, the investment into where they're going for 2026, if they're putting more into this regulation, if they're trying to close it out on a high note, yada, yada, yada. Obviously, things haven't really worked out for them. I don't know how strong their power unit is looking going into next year, but if Lewis Hamilton made the jump from Mercedes to Ferrari, I'm sure he did it for a reason, probably got some information on what that's going to look like. I think we got to see how 2026 looks. If it's a Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren fight at the front for the championship to start off this next regulation, I think that's still generally successful. Right now, they're in a bit of a no man's land, but as you're wrapping up a regulation like this, if it just isn't happening, start washing your hands, like you said. I don't disagree with that sentiment at all. But speaking of people who are frustrated, oh, brother, Alex Albon, annoyed, frustrated.
Can I get a back-to-back in the chats? We got back-to-back DNFs for Alex Albon.
Yeah.
We got back-to-back Q1 exits for Carlos Sainz.
Oof.
I mean, Williams is just...
I forgot about that part.
Crapping it away, dude.
Oh, man. So,
Which bums me out, obviously, as a semi-Williams fan. I mean, my prediction.
Dude, the way that you embrace Williams when they have a strong weekend is like, I told you, Tristan. So you're basically
it's almost more excited than
you're happier to see them net a P6 than you are to see McLaren win races right now. That's just your life.
Yeah, fair.
Wild. Anyway, but no, we're all happy when Williams do well, but some people are a little happier than others.
Look, I want my prediction to work out. I remember how asinine you thought it was that I said Williams is going to finish P5, and you're like, they're lucky if they finish P7.
Look, hold that thought because I've got some stuff to say.
Okay, all right, we're still
starting with
good.
Alex Albon though. He had himself a weekend to forget in Montreal. You mentioned it, DNF. This even goes into qualifying where his entire engine cover flew off.
How does that even happen?
I think they just caught some weird air. Remember when Yuki Tsunoda's front wing just snapped in China?
I do remember that.
Yeah, it happens. I don't know. The car didn't blow up. It was such a weird thing to happen. Under a red flag, though, they were able to fix the entire engine cover, and the dude lands in P8. Dog. Absolute D-A-W-G dog. And then guess what happens? We're going to leave him out there on crappy mediums and see what happens for 23 laps.
Knowing that the mediums suck.
9 out of the other 10 teams were all reporting how bad the mediums were. They left him out there. He disagreed with the strategy to stay out. He wanted to be pit when everybody else was being pit. Was ignored. And then they finally pit him at lap 23. They thought they were going to be ambitious with their strategy. He falls all the way to P20, gets stuck in a DRS train behind Lance Stroll, Ollie Behrman, Pierre Gasly, and I think Franco Colapinto. Liam Lawson, I think, was the only driver behind Alex Albon at one point. He DNFs, and then Alex Albon's engine just blows up, basically. It just shuts off. It stops working. I think it was lap 43.
I don't think Alex Albon's going to be visiting Canada anytime soon.
So, a weekend to forget,
Again for Williams.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, Carlos Sainz did salvage some things. He got a P10 after having a Q1 exit. which is crazy. So
They got
Carlos
one
Sainz,
strategy, right?
They got one thing right. But my question is, here it is. Aston Martin creeping back into this fold. Is Aston Martin going to start giving them a run from their money?
Well, I'll give you a quick breakdown. So Williams is sitting at 5th with 55 points. And then Haas and VCAR both have 28 points.
Yep.
So they're obviously tied for 6th and 7th, however you want to look at it. Aston Martin have 22.
Yes. So why would I ask?
But if you're gonna throw Aston Martin in there, I mean, hell, throw in Kick Sauber because they're 2 points behind Aston Martin.
Let's give a little props to Nico Hülkenberg. The dude's driving like a maniac.
You want to talk about? You want to talk about drivers doing better than anticipated?
Yeah, I mean, he did that last year too with Haas, though. But to stay on my point, is Aston Martin going to creep back into this fold?
No,
they have brought. All right, hang on before you.
Well, I have the team I have the team.
Okay, sure. So they brought some pretty strong upgrades, most recently in Spain and in Canada. They have outperformed Williams in both of those weekends with Fernando Alonso finishing P9 and then P7, outscoring Williams 8-1 over those last 2 race weekends. Constructors gap between the two sitting at just 27 points. And we've seen how quickly things can change in this sport. Going back to I'm not saying that Aston Martin are going to get a podium, but I mean, all it takes is one crazy weekend for things to completely flip for the Constructors' Championship, especially when you're in the midfield. So Aston Martin, right now, at least in my eyes, look like the 5th fastest team in Formula One. The points don't reflect that, but the performance on track the last couple weekends, post upgrades do.
If any team's going to overtake Williams, it's going to be VCARB.
Because of Isaac Hadjar?
Simply because of Isaac Hadjar.
So good, he said no to Red Bull.
He's like, Red Bull, you thought, bro. You're going to have to sit there and you're going to have to stick with your
You're going to have to wait
decision.
until 2026. But you really think VCARB are going to be
I think if you're looking at Haas, VCARB, Aston Martin, and Kick Sauber, I feel most confident about VCARB.
I think Aston Martin, personally. Because not only do they have...
So are we completely just crapping on Haas?
Well,
their possibilities.
Look, with all due respect to Esteban Ocon, he's not better than any of the other drivers within that, that bubble. Besides maybe Lance Stroll and currently Ollie Behrman.
My only worry is how much Lawson's bringing down VCARB.
Well, that's a good question to ask, but we'll get there in a moment. You could argue, you can even throw Liam Lawson into that.
It's even all the more that I feel more confident about Williams maintaining this position. They're 27 points, but ahead of Haas and VCARB. Like I said, they're tied with 28. So, I mean, they have 28 points. They're 27 points ahead. They would have to almost double what they already have.
Look, realistically, do I think that Aston Martin are 100% going to catch Williams? It's going to take some work, especially in the midfield where the points are not double digits every single weekend. But what we are seeing out of Fernando Alonso is pretty special. The fact that he's getting that high up into Q3, starting races P5, P6, tumbling only like one spot, if I'm not mistaken. He finished P7 in this last Grand Prix weekend.
They're saying that he had the worst.
He was the unluckiest driver in the world,
and
then Imola
turns it
around. Yes. I would argue that he is the best driver in this entire bubble that we talked about here, right next to Carlos Sainz. But what I think
Alex Albon's been the better driver for Williams personally.
Well, I'm just general talent. So what I'm saying is, I think that Aston Martin are going to jump the field as far as what Haas and VCARB are going to be doing. Generally speaking, they have a better infrastructure. They have more resources being put into the car. Generally speaking, I know they're putting a lot of effort into 2026. They're putting a lot behind Adrian Newey, but they're not going to just completely punt everything that they have in 2025. It's the same as Mercedes. They're going to bring some upgrades. They're going to try to stay relatively competitive. They're not going to just settle for, we want to finish in 8th because we think we're going to be great next year. You can't guarantee that. You got to at least try.
I'm going to finish off with saying I think it's going to be Williams to lose, but if there was a team that would be in contention, my team would be VCARB.
I would say Aston Martin would be that
because Hadjar is just making it all too common to get into Q3s.
Yeah, but I think that the net points overall are still going a little bit more towards Aston Martin. So what I am saying is that generally speaking, they have the better infrastructure, and I think Aston Martin, with that behind them, have the best shot at unseating Williams. Do I think they are absolutely going to do this after 10 rounds and going into round 11 in Austria? I'm not going to say that for a fact, but if there's going to be anybody to do it, it's going to be Aston Martin.
Nevertheless, tough weekend for Williams. Definitely need a bounce back. Need a back-to-back that doesn't include DNFs and Q1 exits.
Yeah.
They need to get back on the train of both of them finishing in Q3s and both of them finishing in the points, and they'll definitely be able to solidify themselves in 5th and keep building progress on the Williams. Bad weekend, just need a bounce back.
Speaking of the weekend, though, let's wrap it up. Let's rate the race. Now, I gave my rating on Sunday. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I was really excited. And I had so much fun on Sunday, unlike somebody here. But have I changed my mind? Not really. I think at my floor here,
why'd you bring it up?
No, because you didn't get your chance to rate it. So okay. I give this race about an 8.8. Instead of the 9, I'm going to walk it back a bit because my fandom is in there and my sentimentality being a big part of that. But I would say an 8.8 out of 10.
He basically texted me. He's like, "How great was this race, man?" I'm like,
it was a banger.
Oh,
it was possibly the best race of the season.
My rate for this race was an 8.
An 8?
8 flat.
8 flat.
8 flat.
Okay. Why?
You get a new winner. That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
4th winner of the year in George Russell. You get a Kimi podium. That's exciting for F1. Young drivers doing his thing. All the pits were boring. All the pit stops were boring. And it could literally all just be broken down. You could, if you wanted to understand what happened in Canada, watch the last 10 laps. The same row that we started off with quali is the same row we finished with on the race. And so for all those reasons, I give it an 8.
The fighting at the front.
You watch quali and you watch 10 laps, the last 10 laps, and you knew what happened in Canada.
We're up against on time, but I will say this. Max Verstappen putting pressure on George Russell the entire way. The McLaren's putting pressure on Kimi Antonelli for a good chunk of the race was something to watch.
And that's another thing is, had the McLarens not been fighting with each other, Kimi probably would not have landed podium. And I know you don't want to hear that, but I'm just saying.
I mean, no, probably not. I would say that Lando or Oscar possibly overtake him at a certain point, considering that the degradation was starting to lean towards McLaren's favor at the end of the race. Yeah, that's very plausible. But a podium he got nonetheless because somebody decided to kiss the back left tire of Oscar Piastri.
And mow the lawn.
Yeah, and mow the lawn. But for me, the excitement factor was still there. The novelty of this race was still there. The excitement for pretty much up and down the field, honestly, with the DNF factor of Alex Albon, watching that frustration. The radio calls were interesting this race. Watching Ferrari do Ferrari memes and Williams joining in on the memery as well was also kind of fun. But yeah, the racing at the front of the field from 1st down to 5th, I think at one point all the drivers were within like 5 seconds of each other for the net race.
Yeah, it was relatively close.
It was a close race. You could argue it was the best race so far this year.
Better than Monaco. I don't think it was the best race.
That's such a low bar.
I know, but I just feel like we just need to keep saying that. All right, let's move on to the next thing. If you haven't heard about it, you've probably been sleeping under a rock, but for those that are involved in the sport and those that have been keeping up, the F1 movie is getting near. It's getting really close. I think it's the 27th that comes out.
26 for like a day early.
Yeah, I'm planning on maybe going to the 27th. I think I'm going with my girl to go watch it. I know you're going to be watching it separate from me because you hate me.
Yes,
but I did want to talk about this because I mean it's extremely. Obviously, it's relevant because we're an F1 podcast, but it's getting a lot of traction, and I know that some drivers don't feel so great about it, but I think Carlos Sainz wrapped it up pretty well yesterday when he said, I think it's Monday, when he said, look, for the F1, for the pure F1 fans, I'm paraphrasing here, for the pure F1 fans, just be open to the idea of Hollywood. And then if you're not an F1 fan, just enjoy looking at what it's like in the daily life of an F1 driver. And I think that sums it up perfectly. Is it going to be exactly what happens on the track? No. And it's going to be dramatized. We know both of those things are going to be true. But it does an incredible job of encapsulating what they go through, the real drama between trying to be the best with another person trying to be the best on your team. And I think the shots that they're getting from the fact that they actually raced on the track with other drivers on race weekends is going to pay off. And I think visually, I think this movie is going to be stellar.
Yeah. A lot of what you said, pretty much agree with. Directed by Joseph Kosinski. He did Top Gun Maverick.
Yep.
Which
again,
which was praised massively for its visuals.
Almost a lot of people saying better than the original, which you know how crazy of a title that is to get.
Yeah. He also produced Tron. So as far as like things that move fast and race and have visual appeal, like those are two movies that look really, really good.
Yeah.
And when Tron came out, it was also really good visually for the time. Produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, Lewis Hamilton. Brad Pitt was also producer in this movie, stars in the movie, amongst a number of other people who helped produce it. So far, the reviews, took a glance, just wanted to see how, the pundits were feeling about the movie so far. 85% positive on Rotten Tomatoes with like 60 reviews. IGN gave it a 7 out of 10. We'll see what happens. Officially drops 27th, early screenings 26th. I'm going to be out of town watching it with some friends. We're making like a whole F1 weekend.
Yep.
I'm going to be out on the East Coast, Washington,
You can get
DC.
the bucket, the popcorn bucket.
I want it so bad. I have friends that collect these. I've asked them to pick one up for me if they see it, because I don't know if I'll see it in person, but I want one bad. TLPs, you know what I want? I'm turning 28 later this summer. That's what I want for my birthday.
I did want to say this
look,
because, and I don't know if you were able to experience this, because I'm an iPhone user, you're an Android user, and this is not a shot at you. I genuinely don't know, but they released a haptic trailer where you were able to put it in your hands and hold it and experience the trailer and feel the movement from the trailer on your phone.
I haven't checked it out.
There's like a haptic thing. I don't know if it was iPhone only or what, but that I was able to experience that. That was really cool.
That's neat.
So,
but
I'm excited for it.
So you are excited for this movie, though. I know I'm excited for it. The marketing for this movie has been everywhere.
Everywhere. You can't miss it.
Now look, if you're a Formula One fan, I know for a fact you'll share this sentiment. I feel like you can't turn over a rock without seeing an ad or seeing Brad Pitt's face or one of the drivers talking about the movie. That's fine. The marketing has been massive for this. Obviously, they really believe in this project. I know if you're watching this podcast, you've likely seen a ton of media for it. Overall, I'm really optimistic. I think we got to remember, you mentioned this, Carlos Sainz basically mentioned this. It's a movie. It's trying to get people into F1. It is not going to be a massive technical breakdown of every single little piece of infrastructure. And this is Formula One. Like, it's going to be fun. It's going to be, for a lot of people, at least here in the States still, where the audience is already growing massively, it's going to be an introduction of some sort for a lot of people.
And I would just say, if you are going into it and you're ready to watch it and you are a purist, just have an open mind. Just enjoy the movie for what it is and just go into it with an open mind, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. And like, look, both of us plan to like drop at least our initial reactions right on the YouTube channel. You'll see them on Instagram, TikTok.
We'll pirate the video and we'll put it on YouTube.
Just
obviously kidding. Obviously kidding. No,
kidding.
Just kidding.
Jerry Bruckheimer, don't come after us. But we're going to drop at least our initial reactions about it. We'll talk about it on the podcast. So
no spoilers, though.
Not going to drop any spoilers. I know we're both excited. But what it's going to do, in my theory, it just goes along with my theory on like how you get somebody into sports at all. You and I are been sports fans our entire life. If you were to introduce somebody to like your favorite sport outside of Formula One, which for me would be the NFL, like how do you introduce them to a game? Do you explain the rules to them and tell them this is what a first down is and show them like what a conversion is, or this is how many points you get? No, you give them the drama, you give them the stakes, you give them something to be excited about, and then they get pulled in. And then they learn more because it's fun.
Yeah.
I think that's what this movie's going to offer for a lot of people. It's not going to be some crazy souped up, like, oh, this is how the car works. It's going to be drama. It's going to be fun though. So just open mind, like let's have a good space for this.
Yeah. Let's accept this.
Let's accept it. Let's be embracing. Let's be open to it. But if the movie sucks, like we'll talk about it. Like we'll tell you why it sucks. But I have a good feeling about it. I want to know if you guys are excited for the F1 movie. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Kevin and I are, again, ecstatic for this. I can't wait to go see it. I hope I get to see it in IMAX. That's how it's intended.
I will only go to see it in IMAX.
Sick.
I will pay good money to go
and
see
if
this.
you procure that F1 bucket and I don't, hit me up on social media. I will maybe buy it from you.
Or even better, tag us, the Lapped Pod, on social media, or even his. We're scrolling below, and just like tease him with it. Just like, hey, look what I got. You didn't. Look what I got. That'd be cool too.
Rude. All right. We got one more thing I want to cover really quickly before we get out of here. Speaking of comments, your comments. We got a couple of comments across the social medias. I want to address at least a couple of these while you get this tweaked up a little bit here. That's fine. You can cover my face.
I don't want to see it anyway.
while he gets this all worked out, if you guys want to talk to us and communicate with us on the podcast, feel free to drop some questions or something interesting down in the comments below, and we will talk about it on the next episode of the Lap Podcast. So we want to be engaging with you guys. That's why we're always encouraging you to, okay, I'll just pull over. Why we're always encouraging you guys to comment, because maybe we'll talk about your comments. This one from Cupcake Without the Icing. We
Nice
got this
name.
one a day ago. Great name. I don't really think this incident, talking about the McLaren, the Papaya incident, will change how McLaren operates much at all. Like, sure, we have over half the season to go, but they have nearly double the points as Mercedes in second place. Oscar on his own is 1 point shy off Mercedes total. I guess if incidents like these keep happening, it could lead them to reevaluate things, but they'd already said they expected them to clash at some point. It's exactly what we saw. Yeah, we talked about
Quite
this,
literally what I said, Cupcake Without the Icing. I agree.
which, yeah, Kevin actually had a chance to respond to this one. And overall, I understand why you guys would say it that way. I think that it's going to make them have to drive safer, though. So what I mean operationally is they're going to be debriefs. There are going to be conversations happening behind the scenes. There are going to be discussions had within the paddock, at least the way I see it, where they're going to have to remind these guys, look, we have to maintain the max amount of points. At the end of the day, just try to race as cleanly as possible. And there will probably be some moments this season that are annoying, where we hear them go, hey, you guys are near each other, just make sure to race clean, which is a redundant thing normally, but when you crash into your teammate, sometimes you got to have that reminder. And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get at this point. It's a big moment for the season. It's a season-defining moment so far. This could change the complexion of some things. I still believe that. While Lando's a very nice guy and he's very forthcoming about, yo, this was my fault, it's still an incident at the end of the day, and it does change some things within the paddock. We had another comment that I wanted to talk about. A question from Gavin7261. How long does Max Verstappen, within the context of that video, have until penalty points are removed? Penalty points by the FIA are issued and they last for 12 months. So if I got a penalty point as a driver today, on day of recording is the 18th of June, it does not go away until June 18th of 2026. Max Verstappen getting his at the Spanish Grand Prix, super close. If he has one more incident, which a little drama at the end of the Canadian Grand Prix where George was, trying to some gamesmanship to force Max to get another penalty point. If Max were to receive another penalty point before some more of his other ones from last season expire, then yes, Max will be suspended. But
he has a couple of points that are going to be dropping off here in the next month or two, I want to say.
Probably.
So he'll be fine. It's going to be something to monitor, just because it is something to monitor, being that it is Max Verstappen. But
the dude races hard.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
I promise it'll be fine.
So that's how that all works, though. In case you were curious how that
works,
TLPs, now you know. But if you have questions or you're curious about something, again, drop it down in the comments. We'll do some research for you. Or if I already know the answer, I'll talk about it on the next episode. Maybe you'll be featured. And we just appreciate you guys reaching out and talking to us at all. So thank you so much. With all that out of the way, this has been a long episode. I haven't seen Kevin in a long time. So, we had to catch back up a little bit.
The shorts for me.
So many shorts. You're not gonna be bereft of any content this week.
No. Yeah.
But that's going to do it for this episode of the Lap Podcast. We want to thank you guys so much for watching, or if you're just listening along with us, we appreciate it. Again, we just passed 50 subscribers. We're at 57 at the moment on YouTube, which is kind of our main hub. We post on Instagram. We post on TikTok. We post everything as well on YouTube. Subscribe to us, give us a follow on all the other social media platforms. We really appreciate it. If you want to be subscriber number 58, all you have to do is tap the button, maybe even get the bell on to know every single time we drop videos. We drop every day. We try to anyway. Still got a couple classes.
What F1 podcast do you know of that is as interactive with their fans as we are with y'all? We're including y'all in the comments. We'll respond to y'all as long as y'all aren't being rude. And, we're trying to get to 69 by the end of the month. Our big goal is 100 by the end of the year. If we could do that, that'd be huge.
Yeah.
We can invest into this a little bit more, and, we can up some things here and there. We've done some stuff here and there. So we appreciate the support. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate y'all. We know which ones of y'all are coming back and watching the content. We've got our eyes on you so we can see those things. but there's like a good amount of y'all that aren't subscribed. So if you like our content and you love our stuff, We like to do
Hell,
it.
if you've watched this entire podcast,
yeah,
all
if
the
you're
way to
still
the end,
listening to me ramble about this stuff,
Yeah,
then please,
subscribe.
for the love of God, please subscribe. But
it helps us move up the algorithm, puts us right in front of more F1 fans like yourself. So we'd really, really appreciate it. If you haven't joined the community yet, please do. Until next time, though, be safe, be well. Let's go racing.